and far. I'm Gillian McNeil and I am one of the team at Call Scotland, and it's my job really just to welcome you and introduce the session today. Really delighted to have Ailie Finlay joining us. Ailie is a professional storyteller, I think is hopefully the right title for you, founder of the organisation My Kind of Book, which is an organisation that creates books for children with complex additional needs. And you have been storytelling for many years, Ailie. Really delighted to welcome you back. We've already collaborated with Ailie on a project last year for families, providing online storytelling sessions, so we're delighted to welcome you back. Now, Ailie will be kicking off the webinar today, and Joanna, my colleague, who is also a speech and language therapist at Call, is going to be building on Ailie's presentation and sharing some information about using communication devices within sensory storytelling. So, I say, if you could turn off your microphones now, that would be really helpful. If you have any questions, could you please pop them in as we go along into the chat, and that means we can have a look at them, and we can prompt Ailie at the end to answer any, or Joanna to answer any of these questions. So just pop them in as they crop up in the chat, so that we can kind of monitor that as we go along. Also, I'll have one or two websites to share with you. I'll pop that into the chat so that you can do a bit of copy and pasting and refer to them if you would find that useful. So I'm going to just stop sharing my screen now and pass you over to Ailie. If you're good to go, I'll just pass over to you now then, Ailie.
Great, thanks very much, Gillian. It's very nice to be with you all. So today I'm going to talk about sensory storytelling. As it's quite short, I'm just going to pick on one particular aspect of sensory storytelling, and hopefully as I talk about that, I'll be giving you some good ideas for props you can use for your sensory stories, and communication devices that will help you tell your story and engage the children and young people and adults that you're working with. Just before I start, by sensory story, what I mean is a story that includes props, objects, sensory stimuli, noises, things to feel, smell, that all go together to create a complete package so that the story turns into a sensory experience and helps children or young people or adults who might find it more difficult to engage with just text or just words. And the aspect today that I want to concentrate on is how we can use our props and our objects and sensory stimuli to encourage children to engage with the story, how we can use the props as a kind of invitation to come along on the journey of the story. So first of all, I'm going to talk a bit about props and how we use them, and communication devices, so little recording devices like this kind of a simple one, or some of you might have Big Macs or something similar. I'll talk a little bit about how we might use these, and I know that Joanna, once I've finished, is going to expand on that because she's got more knowledge than me about using technological devices. Yes, so how can we use our props as an invitation? Sometimes when we start off a story, I think, rather than starting with the words, it can be nice to start with the prop or the object. And this can act as a very gentle kind of invitation to somebody to engage with the story that you're about to tell. Some invitations can be extremely gentle. So often, if I'm telling a story with wee ones, I have my trusty little music box that I use. And I use this before I've spoken any words, and often with wee ones, maybe even before I've tried to make eye contact with them, if they're finding eye contact a bit difficult. And then with slightly older ones, I might use something like this to encourage everybody to join in. And these two are very good because everybody can join in with them. They can take the beater and join in, make the noise, or turn the handle of the music box, or put their hand on the music box and feel the vibrations of the music as it happens. Sometimes you might want to invite people by giving them a little tiny surprise. So you might want to just have something that will make them sit up and take notice and realize that something different is about to happen. So that could be, for example, a noise. And I've got these lovely whistles. And now with all the props, I think there will be links. For the things that are more difficult to find, there'll be links in the chat. But if we do miss anything that you're not sure about, then ask me at the end. These are Acme whistles, and you can get all different kinds of birds. That one's a curlew. Or another great favourite, which for some reason universally seems to make people laugh, is the slide whistle. A little bit louder, which some people do like, is the duck. So these just make a little noise to make somebody sit up, prick up their ears and wonder what's about to happen. Similarly with this, which some of you may have in your classrooms. And the link for these that will be put in the chat are for some quite nice ones, which are quite neutral when it comes to age, so they don't look too babyish. You get sheep, cows, and what I always think is a slightly ill-sounding cat. Yeah, so these also can act as invitations just to make people wonder what is going to happen next. This is something different. So you can start with these noises, get people's attention, and then take them on the journey of the story. Another thing that can engage people is a secret. Everybody wants to know a secret. And when it comes to sensory storytelling, secrets are in pockets or bags or boxes. So as soon as, it's a universal human trait, I think, as soon as we see a bag, we want to know what is inside. But when we're telling our story, we want to keep our secrets for a little while. We want to keep people guessing. We don't want to give it away straight away. So we might want to let people hear what is in the bag. We might also want to let people feel what is in the bag and guess what is in the bag. In this one, I have some rather nice wooden pebbles. But it doesn't actually have to be anything special. You can make it special just by the way you treat it. So it could be onions or potatoes in the bag, and people would still be fascinated if you treat it in the right way. People will still be fascinated and want to know what you've got in there and have fun guessing. And again, this can be a bit of a surprise. So you might have something like this, and then you invite somebody to help you pull out the thing in the bag, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So the surprise here is that such a big piece of silk can fit in such a tiny, tiny bag. These silk squares, I think the link will be put in the chat. They are a bit pricey, but they are lovely because, well, for one reason, they're very nice to cover somebody with because you can see through them, so they're not frightening to be covered with. They're also great to stretch out in a group and to bounce things on. So I use this one as the ocean, and then we can bounce little felt ships on there to make it maybe a storm with the ships bouncing all around.
I like this idea.
So that's the, yes, but again, you know, it doesn't have to be something that is lovely to have, obviously, to have some special silk like that, but it doesn't have to be something expensive and exclusive. It could be something quite ordinary like this. Some of you may have something like this at home, and if you treat it as being special, then the people you're telling the story to will feel that it's special. So if I take this, oh, look at this. Look, you can pull that, and then, oh, I wonder what is in here. Oh, look at that. It's a bag. So you can make it special just by the way you treat it. So we've got gentle invitations and surprising invitations, and we've got secrets, and all these things can help our invitation be that much more appealing to the people that we're telling the story to. Now, all these props could be used in many different stories. So sometimes I think people think that they need to have different props for each story, but I'm a great believer in shoehorning things into stories. So if a prop works, then use it in many different stories and have a little collection for yourself of props that you know work. So these noises, for example, many stories could start off with birds singing or with sheep baaing on the hillside. Another nice thing is this here, which is hand warmers. You get in outdoor shops, and I just put one in a little bag like that, and that makes the sun shining and everybody can feel that. So many stories could start with the sun, or maybe in Scotland, even more likely is a story starting with the rain. And it's the same with the communication aids. So we can start off the story with the communication aid in exactly the same way, starting with the noise, so inviting people to come and join in because they're so intrigued about what's happening. I'm thinking, let's see, so with this one, it's just a little button on the back, and then you push it and you record. So you could put on that, you could put maybe, you could have some snoring, and then you start off with the snoring, and you're saying to the children, oh, what could that be? I wonder. I'll tell you. That is the troll that lives under the bridge. Or maybe you start off with some crying, with a baby crying. Oh, there's a baby. A princess baby. And then you go into Sleeping Beauty. But by the time you get to the actual story, people have become intrigued and interested. I think my time is running out, but I'll just very quickly say a couple more things about these communication aids and what you can do with them. So I'm sure that a lot of you use them in stories for the kind of catchphrases of the story, or the rhyme, or the little bit of song in the story that's repeated throughout. They're also great to use for incidental sounds, and this is particularly good if you have children that maybe find it difficult to follow exact cues. So maybe the sound's going to appear at some unlikely moment. That won't matter if you put, for example, the wind, the sound of the wind on one of these devices, or maybe a a witch's laugh, then all you have to do when you hear the noise and you're telling the story is to bring the noise into the story. So say, oh, the wind's getting really loud. Oh, I can hear that witch laughing. So as long as you have a way prepared ahead of time where you can include the noise into the story, then you don't need to worry about people following cues exactly. Another thing that these are very good for is for improvising and also for giving some of your power away. So one of the things that stories do really well is to take some of the power that we have and give it to other people. So for example, if you give this to one of your pupils, one of your children or young people, and they record on it something slightly cheeky, and you don't know what it is, maybe with the help of a slightly cheeky classroom assistant, and then when you're improvising the story, maybe you've asked everybody to add something to a spell, add something to a cauldron, for example, and you're going around the class. And some of the things might be, a bit cheeky, like bogies or poo or something like that. That's a really nice way of including a little bit of cheekiness, because I often think that one thing that children with additional needs, particularly children with complex additional needs, miss out on are those kind of cheeky moments where they get to be just a little bit cheeky to people. So using our stories, we can actually encourage just a little bit of that to happen in the classroom or at home. Now I'm going to pass on now to Joanna, who's going to tell us a bit more about different types of communication aids and ways that we can use them. If that's right, Joanna, you ready?
Yep.
Yeah,
Indeed. Yeah, thanks, Ailie.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm just going to expand a little bit on the kind of communication aids that can be used. I'm just going to share my screen for a minute and show you. Here we go. This is one of our downloadable posters that you can, I put the link into the chat earlier. This is a really handy poster because you can see all the different simple communication aids that are available. And if you click on the name of the device, it's a hyperlink and it will take you to the information about the device and where you can get them from. So there's quite a selection of buttons, a talking button like Ailie was using, where you'd maybe have, as Ailie was saying, a sound effect or an incidental noise. And they usually just have one message on them. So one kind of sound effect or maybe a repeated line or a repeated song lyric perhaps in one of the songs in the story. But you can get other devices which have multiple messages that you can record on, which can be really nice. For example, the little step-by-step, you'll see there, the blue one, the little step-by-step, you can record a series of messages on in sequence. So when Ailie was mentioning about having the bag and building up that anticipation of saying what's in the bag, oh, I wonder what it can be. Is it something smooth? Is it something warm? Oh, let's have a look. And you can record the sequence of the messages on the device. That's a step-by-step I've got here. So you can press and have the series of messages on there. You could also have multiple sound effects recorded on there too. So when you press each button, each time you press, you get a different sound effect to join it at different times in the story. And again, as Ailie was saying, you can give the power to the person. They can be leading the story and maybe introducing the next thing that happens in the story too. So you've got multi-message devices and then the sort of larger single message devices like a Big Mac, which also come in step-by-step versions too. So depending on what you need, if you're able to hit the larger target or the smaller target, you can also plug in external switches to them. But just to show you as well, where you get that leaflet from. So from our download section on the Call Scotland website, lots of useful posters, and that's the one there, a guide to single and multi-message devices. And if you'd like to borrow and try any of these simple communication aids with your learners, we also have the Call Scotland Equipment Bank, where you can search for equipment and borrow it free for up to 2 months if you're in Scotland for a child or an adult with a communication difficulty who's taking part in sensory stories and early level communication. So you just search for the item you're looking for. So it could be perhaps a power link, which is a mains adapting device into which you can plug a bubble machine or other sensory equipment and then plug your switch in, and the learner can activate the equipment themselves. So I type in power link. And there we go. There's 9 different power links available. So you can click on them and then you can request to borrow them for up to 2 months. So that's our equipment bank. And if you're interested in purchasing any of them, then you can follow links on the poster and find out more. And just to finish off talking about the communication software, there's also on our Symbols for All website, the equipment software section has got a little bit more about single message and sequential message devices, where you can get them from and what you can use them for too. But as Ailie says, it's always nice to give some of that, the power and the leading the story over to the learners too. Okay, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen just now.
Thanks very much, Joanna. I see there's a question there, a related question, I would say, from Anne about using props like these to encourage a child to come into class, so to gain attention of a child, to encourage them into class. Any thoughts at all on that, Joanna or Ailie?
Yeah, so I would say definitely that's a really good idea. I mean, probably in that case, it's best to use something quiet so that you're not disrupting the other children or young people in the class. So maybe a tactile prop, or yeah, I would say probably you don't want something that's, well, depending on the class, but most likely you don't want something that's going to be too noisy, because otherwise you could achieve one aim but end up disrupting everybody else by doing it.
Yeah. I'd just probably add, do you mean, Anne, to encourage them, you mean by using the sound effects, that kind of thing, or by using it as like an object of reference for them, or?
What it is, I've got a boy that's in school with us just now. He sometimes refuses to come anywhere past the front door, so he's usually in a reception area. And it was just really to find out if this could be used in any sort of way to try and bring him back into class, because he was coming into class quite a lot before Christmas. And then suddenly, I don't know what happened, something must have happened at home, that he's now refusing to come anywhere past the front door. Just occasionally he will come into class, but then he stops again. So it was just really to find out if there's any way that I could use any of these sort of story props. It would maybe say, well, we've maybe got more in the class, would you like to come and have a look? And it would maybe be a sort of encouragement for him to come in.
Maybe sorry, Joanna,
I was just going to say, over to you.
So maybe what you could do is put together, so there are quite, if you look online, if you Google something like autism sensory tactile toys or something, you should come up, even on a site like Amazon, with quite a lot of not too expensive, interesting tactile. I'm just digging around in my bag right now to see if I've got anything. What you could do is put together a little bag of maybe tactile, so these kind of type of things. So they're quite interesting from a tactile point of view, but they're not noisy, so they're not going to disrupt the other people in the class. Yes. Probably to begin with, maybe put together a little bag of those, so that you can see, hopefully within that bag there'd be something that he likes, and then that would be a way of enticing him in, I think. And the good thing about those is that you can, I mean, I don't know exactly, what his needs would be, but the good thing about tactile props like that is that you could engage with somebody without making eye contact, because eye contact can be really difficult for people. Yeah. So, you can be pulling that or playing with that with a child, and you're both looking at the object. So you're sharing an experience, but you're not having to actually make eye contact with somebody. Puppets can also be really good for that. So having a puppet that talks to him maybe could be a really good thing to try. I I think it's probably just experimenting and seeing what appeals to him, and then offering that as an invitation.
Lovely, thank you very much.
Super, thanks very much, Ailie, for these ideas. I see there's another question there from Lorraine, Ailie, as to have you made any specific sensory stories to explore recognising emotions, especially with visually impaired children? So stories about emotions.
Yeah,
on that.
Well, that's interesting actually, because I'm just about to start a project that does exactly that. So watch this space. But I think, yeah. So I'm starting a project that around mental health and regulating your emotions for children with complex additional needs. But I think also a lot of, the stories are full of emotions. So it could be that you could actually just maybe revisit some sensory stories that you've told in the past, and then just pull out what's happening emotionally, so retell it but with an emphasis on the emotion, if that would work for the particular child that you're thinking of. Cinderella's sad when she can't go to the ball, and then she's happy when she can go to the ball. So yeah, I don't know, that could be one option to explore emotions, is to use a sensory story that you already have but just highlight the emotions. I always think that giving people very concrete examples is good. A lot of books tend to be quite metaphorical when they talk about emotions, which I think is quite tricky, because emotions in themselves are quite hard to grasp. And then when you're also talking in metaphors, I think that can make it even harder. Yeah, so I think practical examples, that maybe when a child, if you're giving practical examples from their own life, you're happy when you do such and such. But anyway, you know all this already. So
that's super. Thanks very much, Ailie. I see that Joanna's just shared your website link, my kind of book, and we have just maybe a couple of minutes. I'm wondering if take this sort of last question briefly, if we can. It's a suggestion from Shannon about, when I have a child that refuses to enter classroom, I always observe what happens when the child enters, and quite often there are subtle perceived demands placed on the child. I have had good success with providing a visual with a classroom door, and a choice for activities once they enter. Yeah, okay. Well, thanks very much, Shannon. That's a really good idea. Using visuals and a choice of activities. Yeah,
I think that's quite interesting as well, from the point of view of both emotions and stories, because a lot of what is important about stories is the prediction, isn't it? So that what you're doing there is providing the child with an answer to what's beyond the door before they have to go through the door. And I think that's often what we're doing with stories as well, is allowing the child a safe place to experience emotions like fear or joy, etc., etc. So yeah.
Great, good. Well, thanks very much, Ailie. I think we will just conclude there. Joanna, do you want to add anything further, or shall I just?
No, I don't think so. I think just is the best way to contact you, Ailie, if people have further questions or want to ask you about resources through my kind of book. Is that the best way?
Yeah, I can just put my through my kind of book is probably the best way to do it, actually. Yeah.
Super, that's great. Well, thank you very much, both of you, and for everybody joining us today. Just a couple of things to mention before we finish. Events that are coming up through call. The first one to mention actually is our webinar in 2 weeks' time. For anybody who's interested in visuals and in symbols, we have got our next webinar is a webinar presented by Stacey from Symbol Sticks, which is a communication tool. So that's 2 weeks today on Wednesday, the 18th of May. But also for anybody who might be interested in or is working with children and young people with additional support for learning needs, we have our annual technology conference on the 16th of June for it's very low cost to join. It's £5 administrative fee, but this is a day full of presentations from suppliers and practitioners working with children and young people with additional support needs, a great variety to choose from. You can, if you visit the website that I'm just showing this now, you can have a look at the programme and an opportunity to sign up. So yeah, we look forward to seeing some of you there perhaps. So thanks very much everybody, especially to Ailie, and look forward to catching up with you again soon and your projects up and coming. And to everybody for joining. I'm sure there's been a lot of food for thought there about our storytelling and sensory stories in the future. So wish you all a very good evening. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks very much, everybody. Lots of nice comments here, Ailie, from people thanking you. Yeah. Bye for now.
Thank you.